Welcome to Codex, a history of video games. My name is Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta.
And this week, Mike is going to take us on a journey through horror video games, which is very scary for me because I don't play horror video games because I don't like being scared.
Oh, it's about to get real spooky, Tyler. Are you going to be okay?
Are you going to spook me?
You going to turn all the lights on? I'm going to turn all the lights on.
Yeah, all my lights are definitely on. It is daytime as I record this.
Yeah, we are not recording this at night because I don't want to get scared either. But today, we are talking about the early days of horror video games, and mostly survival horror specifically.
Okay.
This is an interesting topic because while there wasn't much to go off of, as far as like, there's no one that's written a history of survival horror, but there were some pretty sweet lists of the best horror video games of all time, and I put them in chronological order and combined them and made it my own thing. That's how the internet works, if anything. So get ready to learn about some terrifying, somewhat pixelated horror games up until about the mid-90s, and that's kind of our cutoff point right now because I know there's some big ones like Resident Evil, Silent Hill. I'm leaving those off this list because they probably deserve their own episodes later. You know what I mean? And so we haven't had a lot of horror experience, but Tyler, you and I have played a horror game together, and that was Until Dawn for PS4, and that was very scary.
I remember that. That was a very spooky game.
Made me very scared. I was like, ooh, and people would die, and it would be your fault if you messed up the QuickTime event. Oh,
yep.
So scary.
We lost a lot of people.
We did. A lot of people. Not a lot of people made it out of there.
We were passing the controller around. Not everybody is very good at video games, and we lost some people.
Yeah, I was like, I would have totally crushed that QuickTime event. Anyway, the first game is 1981, and it's for the PET 2001, which I don't know what that is, or the PC 6001. Do you know what those are, Tyler, at all?
No.
Old computers, I think.
Super old. Wow. The PET 2001, PC 6001. I kind of want to look these up.
Googling
right now.
while I explain the game. It's called Nostromo, and it is a survival horror game developed by Akira Takaguchi at Tokyo University. He was a student there, and he was a contractor for Taito, and he made this game for the PET 2001, and then ported it to the PC 6001. That port was done by Masakuni Mitsuhashi, also known as Hiromi Oba. He later joined Game Arts was the name of the company he was a part of after that. But it was published by ASC2 in 1981 exclusively in Japan. It is inspired by a 1980 stealth game called Manabiki Shujo, which I couldn't find anything on. And then the 1979 hit horror film Alien. The Nostromo was the ship from Alien. So the gameplay of Nostromo, which might be why it was just in Japan, because if you released that in the U.S., it would definitely be a copyright infringement thing on a U.S. trademark, I think. But the gameplay of Nostromo involved a player attempting to escape a spaceship while there's a giant alien. Oh, and it's invisible. And he only becomes visible when appearing in front of the player. It's super scary. I actually watched a YouTube video of this. And you actually have to go around the ship and like collect sources around the ship, like resources, and then take them to your ship so you can get out, to get off the ship and take a little ship escape pod thing. Okay. Eventually, though, the player will find out they're unable to escape and will be killed by the alien. It's a bummer.
Wow.
If you win the game, you just get killed. It's like a typical horror movie. Everyone dies. I watched some footage of this game on YouTube though, and it's fun because you're a square. And then the alien is an @ symbol, which makes sense because it's A for alien. Okay. And then the collectibles you pick up are the $, the plus, and an up arrow. So that's what you pick up in the rooms. And you can like open the doors to the rooms. It's pretty cool. It's like very early on, but I could see how if you're like in 1981 playing this game, it would blow your mind,
Yeah.
The next game is actually really cool. It's called Terror House. It was in 1982, and it is a Bandai LCD solar powered handheld. You remember those like the handhelds you'd get from like I don't know, like at a grocery store, that like Batman. It's essentially it's like Mr. Game & Watch essentially. Yeah. And this is it's in 1982, and it's based on a traditional Japanese horror like myths, I believe. And it was it's 2 solar panels at the top. And it's able to actually like do some pretty cool scene changes and stuff where some of the scenes never change, but then your guy like will move and bounce across the screen. I think most people are familiar with these older games. If you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely Google.
We did an episode where we talked about them too.
Oh yeah, we did do an episode. I said Google. Listen to our old backlog. We got some stuff on them actually. The amount of ambient light the game received also had an effect on how it was like the gaming experience, which I thought was pretty cool. Like that was
that done on purpose, or was it just like we have less power, move slower?
I couldn't find out, but maybe just less power made it so it was slower and it like upped the stakes. It might have been accidental, but it very much looked like a Mr. Game & Watch game. And I saw it, and you're like a guy, and you're walking around this mansion, and it's haunted, and it's scary, and that's about all the story I could get from it. The next one, though, this might be my favorite one. You ready for it? It's 1982 for the Sinclair ZX81.
The ZX.
The Z, is that what it's called?
ZX, yeah. The Sinclair ZX Spectrum.
We've had this session before. I feel
We
like.
have.
I think I've said
Because-
ZX before, like a ding dong.
Because it was very popular in the United Kingdom where they say Z. So I just think it's
Would
funny
you
that they
like
call
a
it the ZX.
ZX? Hello.
That's right. Yeah.
Sorry to all our
Hello,
UK
Governor.
listeners.
We're playing our ZX Spectrums.
I don't think we're allowed to do accent work anymore. The game is called 3D Monster Maze. It's a 3D monster maze. It's built in the UK by a designer J.K. Gray and a programmer named Malcolm Evans. 3D Monster Maze is the first game programmed by Malcolm Evans, and it's based on J.K. Gray's design. So J.K. Gray here, worked in the aerospace industry. This is actually a pretty interesting story. In aircraft design. And then, as a microprocessor scientist at Sperry Gyroscope in Bristol, UK, he received a ZX81 from his wife for his 37th birthday. That's when he started programming in April of 1991.
It's never too late.
It's never too late to get started on your dream, okay? And then Malcolm developed the basic aspects of the game to test what the computer was capable of. So he was just like doing it to like mess around. How all great things are created, I think. And he completed it after adding design features suggested by J.K. Gray, including adding, and this is it, the monster of the game is a T-Rex. And you are running through this maze, and the T-Rex chases you. It's really cool. Friends persuaded Malcolm that the game was of high enough quality that he could actually sell it. And he eventually released it by J.K. Gray Software in February of 1982. And this is the fun anecdote that I was mentioning about the history of this thing. Sperry Gyroscope actually closed, and then Malcolm Evans started to develop games full-time in his firm called New Generation Software. So he actually became like a full-time game developer because of this hobby after his other job like shut down, which is pretty cool.
That's great. Good for him.
3D Monster Maze is cassette-based. Remember those? Cassettes?
Yeah.
That's right. In the game, you are an unnamed player, so you, which I think makes it even more scary, when it's like you picture yourself in there, kind of like a silent protagonist, making it so it's you, okay? You think it's you. You're dropped into a randomly generated maze that contains a T-Rex, and it's first-person view, and as the player, as you move through the maze, the T-Rex will begin to hunt you down. The game uses an 18 by 16 cell maze, and it's randomly generated, like I said before. Initially, the T-Rex waits for you. It doesn't do anything, but once you start moving any direction, that's when the beast starts hunting you. And the T-Rex can also actually calm down and stop hunting you if you get far enough away from him. So you can kind of like play the game that way, if you get out of its way. If the T-Rex gets a direct view of you, it will run directly at you. And there's a thing called the T-Rex anxiety level, which is reported to the player as a statement in the status line. And it kind of gives you a clue to how like far away the T-Rex is from you. And the statements it says are, Rex lies in wait. He is hunting for you. Footsteps approaching. Rex has seen you. And run, he is beside you. Or run, he is behind you.
This sounds so scary.
It does. It's a little maze game. It's so scary. The player's speed, though, is always greater than the T-Rex. So it's possible to just run away from him. Like, you'll eventually beat him. Okay. The problem is when you get trapped in a corner. That's when you fail the game. The player can manually. This was like the strategy guide that I found out about. You could actually map the maze on a piece of paper while you play it if you wanted to, and then you could like figure out where each step goes. But it goes harder and harder because each time you beat the maze, the pace gets faster. Also, the one thing about the game that was like kind of a mess up is the fast pace of the game can also lead to you pushing the keyboard really hard. And if you do that, you can actually shake the computer's 16 kilobyte memory expansion connection, and you can just reset the game on accident if you get too into it. And it said, quote, with several minutes of reload time. So if you get too into the game and you press your keyboard too hard, the game's going to restart and you're going to have to wait a couple minutes to start it again.
Wow. So you have to measure. It's like those horror games that have like a heartbeat sensor where they make the game like scarier based on your heartbeat. You have to like try to not be scared, or try to not hit the thing too hard, or you'll reset the game.
Exactly. Now, the best part about this too is that there's a point system with the game. So you are awarded by any time the monster is actively hunting you. So since the player runs faster than the monster, you can just rack the score up by running around in circles with the monster. Like you could just like play the game to get points if you really wanted to. But you can only get those points by successfully exiting the maze and moving on to another one. When the game ends, the player is informed about being sentenced to roam the maze forever. Yeah, there's a storyline here. And
Wow.
you can either appeal or continue playing again in the last maze. If you appeal to leave the maze, you are rejected with a 50-50% probability. So in which case, so if you beat it, they'll send you back into the maze. You could keep going and try to beat it again and keep appealing. And if you appeal successfully, it results in a computer self-reset. So that's how you beat the game. It just resets itself.
Huh.
It's a cool
So
concept, I think.
you're forced to roam the maze forever. Do you become the T-Rex? Is this T-Rex just the last person that played the game before you?
You know what? If we were going to remake 3D Monster Maze, that's how we would do it. You would
Yeah.
slowly turn into a T-Rex, and then...
It could be a horror movie where people get sucked into the game. There's
And then-
something here. We can write this script.
Yeah.
There's something here.
It's like a Jurassic Park Jumanji crossover.
Yeah. The most ambitious crossover in history.
So that's a cool one. That one was actually on multiple lists. So I feel like that one really deserves to be on here, 3D Monster Maze. But the next one is called Haunted House. And
That
this
sounds scary.
It's for the Atari 2600, very scary. And it is February 1982. This is one of the very first video games to really incorporate like a horror setting. Like you play as a pair of eyes and you search a dark house, like a haunted mansion, and it's full of bats, spiders, and ghosts, because those are scary. And the ghost is actually the spirit of the former owner of the house, Mr. Graves. Ooh.
Mr. Graves. That sounds scary too. Who names themselves Mr. Graves?
I don't know. It's very scary. But the house has 3 floors and a basement, so 4 floors total. And the player character must pick up only one of 3 items at a time. So you have like a choice. You can hold a key to open doors, a scepter to ward off evil spirits, or the urn. And I don't really know what the urn does, but you got to avoid the bat, the tarantula, and the ghost of Mr. Graves himself. If the player is hit by the monsters 9 times, the game ends. If the player escapes the house with the urn, that's what the urn is for. Yeah, you got to keep it so you can win. The player wins. So the urn is like what you carry with you. But to open doors and a scepter, you got to like go back and forth and dodge the monsters. The items and the house layout in higher difficulties can only be seen when the player uses the fire button on the joystick to light a match. So there is like a scary like fog of war thing going on here.
Okay.
And it illuminates a small radius directly around the character. This can be done an infinite number of times, though. But each match only lasts for a limited amount of time before being snuffed out. If a monster enters the same room as the player, a howling wind from the monster will blow out any lit match. That's scary.
That's very scary.
It's very scary, right? Haunted House has a total of 9 different levels, which make the game more challenging. In particular, later difficulty levels make the walls of the house itself invisible unless the player lights a match.
Oh, man. That sounds really scary.
Now, here's what's cool about Haunted House. There was a sequel in 2010.
In
Released by
2010?
Atari.
That's a
Yep.
long time.
And it revamped Haunted House and upgraded the graphics and everything. It was released on Windows, Wii, and Xbox Live Arcade. For Windows, it came out on September 28th, 2010. For Wii on October 5th, and for Xbox Live Arcade on October 28th. The game takes place 30 years after the original protagonist was implied to have mysteriously vanished inside the mansion. And now
So
your
scary.
grandchildren are searching for you inside the mansion. Isn't that terrifying, Tyler?
That sounds really scary, Mike.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry I frightened you today. I didn't mean to. It's just, crazy stuff.
I'm really glad we're doing this during the daytime because I would not be able to sleep after this.
Oh, man, if you thought that one was bad, the next one is a doozy. The
Oh, no.
Screamer. It's called The Screamer. It was
That
released
sounds scary.
Yeah, it is scary. In 1985 for the NEC PC-88. NEC PC-88? Sure, I'll just say that.
NEC PC? That's like
Yeah.
a Japanese. The NEC stuff was really popular in Japan.
This is a Japanese-only game, so that is why. So I'm going to
There
read
you
the
go.
little blurb from the article. It's pretty short. and I had a hard time finding a lot of stuff about the game, but I did watch a YouTube video. So I'll read the blurb and then describe the YouTube video to explain the game. Quote, while the Screamer's text-based exploration and flickering combat might not appear all that terrifying by modern standards, this was one of the most intense survival horror experiences gamers could find in 1985. Set in a steampunk, post-apocalyptic world, it's right after World War III. That's not in the quote, I just wanted to let you know that. Japanese-made RPG The Screamer introduced brutal difficulty elements like permanent deaths for characters. Removing your character saves after they met their death. It actually would delete your saves, which is crazy.
Wow.
And button-thumping shooting sequences against zombies and mutants. Due to the permanence of your death, combat gained a terrifying edge of importance, end quote. And I just realized I had the articles I used up here, and I forgot to tell you what they were. So the articles I used this episode were a brief history of groundbreaking horror video games on the13thfloor.tv, which I think is like a horror website dedicated to horror movies and horror whatever. It's great. Scary. And a history of horror video games on shortlist.com. The Screamer game was, I believe, from the Shortlist article. That's where you can find it. Now, Here's me describing the game to you. So the Screamer has a window where all the graphics takes place in the middle. This is a text-based game. All right. On the left, you have your choices you can make. And on the right, you have like your stats and all that stuff. Okay. So and the dialogue's down below. So it's like 4 boxes. The middle box, like you go into a dungeon and you'll just like move forward, move back, move left, move right. Okay. When you click it and you enter combat, the combat looks like Street Fighter almost. Like it moves to like profile view, 2 enemies. Okay. One is you, one is the enemy, you know? And all you can do is shoot and jump. So this game is a lot like Halo Rockets, where you're just shooting and jumping the whole time. That's the strategy I watch the people play on the game play. Like I saw on YouTube, is just to jump and shoot as much as you can to dodge the other enemy's bullets while hitting them. So, but what happens is if you die in the game, die in real life. Okay, the character can't go again.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's why it's so intense. But yeah, this game I couldn't really find a lot of it. Even like Giant Bomb's like wiki of it was pretty slim. There was not a lot on it. It's a Japanese only release, and if you get like an English version, I'm making air quotes with my fingers right now, all of the I think the menus like in English, but the dialogue is still in Japanese, at least with the version I saw. Yeah. So anyway, 1986 saw a big game called Castlevania come out. I'm not going to talk about that much. Castlevania deserves its own episode. Okay, you're fighting Dracula. It's a part of a genre called Metroidvania that we're eventually going to talk about. So I just want to let people know it exists, and I'm skipping it on purpose. Don't email, be like, oh, what happened to Castlevania? It's there. I'm just not doing it right now. Is that okay with you, Tyler?
That's okay with me. Is that like a horror game? I haven't really played very many Castlevania games, so I don't know if that's like considered a horror game. I would
consider it horror, at least the first one, because you are fighting Dracula, and you're a vampire hunter, and you're in a spooky castle. So, and there's a Vania. I don't even know what a Vania is, but I just wanted to combine the words together. So there you go. Scary games continued. This one's a doozy, too. War of the Dead.
That sounds really scary.
Yeah, it came out in 1987. MSX2, PC88, and PC Engine. Those are the 3 platforms it's on. Never heard of them.
Gonna guess this was another Japanese game, because those are all Japanese computers.
Is. It's Shiryu Sensen, War of the Dead. It's his title. A 1987 title. It made it Fun Factory as the developer, and it was published by Victor Music Industries. For those 3 computers I just talked about, it is considered, quote, that's right, here comes the hot take, the first true survival horror game. And that's said by Kevin Gifford of GamePro and 1UP, and John, I think it says Paniac, of Retro Gamer and The Escapist. Now, this was designed by Katsuya Iwamoto, and the game was a horror action RPG, and you played a female SWAT member, Lila, and you were rescuing survivors of an isolated, monster-infested town and bringing them to safety in a church. Now, what's cool about this game is it's like top-down environments like Zelda or Dragon Quest, but then it's like Zelda 2, where when you fight stuff, it goes to 2D side-scrolling platform.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it said, like, War of the Dead, like, kind of departed from other RPGs because it was really dark and creepy, and it expressed through storytelling, graphics, and music. I watched a long play of this. The music's cool. Check it out, everybody. Okay? I really liked it. The player character has a limited amount of ammunition. Ooh. And though the player character can punch or use a knife, you want to use your guns because the guns are stronger. Okay, so don't make sure you hit those shots, everybody. All right.
You gotta use them smartly, right?
The game also has a limited item inventory, and there's crates to store items in, and it has a day-night cycle. This game kind of did a lot.
Wow.
At the time.
1987.
Yeah, you can actually sleep to recover health, and a record is kept of how many days the player has survived. All right, in 1988, War of the Dead Part 2 came out, and it kind of got rid of all these RPG elements, and it just became like an action-adventure game, like a Metal Gear style. And it just was horror still, but it was like a Metal Gear horror, which isn't bad, but it's not as good as the first one, which is like a cool RPG, like Zelda 2, but if it was horror, which is neat. Now, I don't know how to say this one. I think it's Kenseiden.
That sounds right.
That's how you say it? It's 1988. It was for the Sega Master System.
All right.
I don't know if this qualifies as horror when I wrote this down, but you're fighting the undead and warlocks, so I feel like that counts. Kind of like how Castlevania is on the edge. It's still got horror themes to it. You go through various areas of ancient Japan, and you can actually go back through if you want to. You're a samurai, by the way. Your name's Hayato. And you got to fight against these warlocks and evil spirits that plague 16th century Japan. And the warlocks stole the 5 secret scrolls and the sword of the Dragon Lord. Yeah, that sounds like
you need those back, especially that sword of the Dragon Lord.
Yeah, you got to get that stuff back. And Hayato, who has dragon blood in his veins, that's really cool.
Wow.
This is what Skyrim was based off of.
This is the first Skyrim.
You got to recover the scrolls and the sword, and then enter the castle and kill Oda Nobunaga. And Nobunaga is actually a real Japanese daimyo from the late 16th century who attempted to unify Japan during a late Sengoku period and successfully gained control over most of Honshu through conquest. So he is a real person, and they're just kind of fiction. It's like almost like historical fiction, this game. And it's definitely like a side-scrolling kind of beat-em-up dealio, I think. So just so everyone knows that. But I mean, I thought this one was pretty cool because maybe it's not exactly horror, but it's still you're fighting undead. Like you fight skeletons. If you fight skeletons, it should count on this list. Is my thought process.
So if you fight skeletons, there's a lot of games where you fight skeletons.
I know, right? It's like,
this is gonna be a really long list.
It's a really long list. Anyway, next up, ghouls and goblins. No, I didn't put that one on there. Actually, ghosts and goblins. That should have been on this list. Man, I goofed. Yeah. It wasn't on these lists. Whatever. I actually added only one game from memory, and we're gonna get to it very soon. Next one, this game I know I've said my favorite, I think, multiple times, but this one actually is a game that I would play. It's not like I wouldn't play the other ones, but this one is like, it looks like if someone showed this to me, I would be like, I'll give it a go. Splatterhouse, 1988. It's an arcade game. It was in an arcade first. And
okay.
I'm going to ask you a question, Tyler. What would happen if you combined H.P. Lovecraft with American slasher films? I just gave you the answer 2 seconds ago.
Would you get a game called Splatterhouse?
You nailed it. Gosh, you're so good at it. That's the answer. This is a side-scrolling beat-em-up. It's kind of like Double Dragon, but you're fighting monsters. 2 students at a local university, here's the storyline, by the way. Rick Taylor and Jennifer Willis take refuge from a storm in the West Mansion, a local landmark known as Splatterhouse, for the rumors of hideous experiments purportedly conducted by the Dr. West, a renowned and missing parapsychologist. As they enter the mansion...
Scary.
Oh, yeah. As they enter the mansion, the door shuts behind them. Jennifer screams. Do you want to do this? Yeah, that was a good scream, Tyler. I was going to ask you, but you were on the ball. And you made the episode feel really spooky just now.
Yeah, I'm
really
trying.
Good. Now, after the scream happens, then Rick wakes up in the dungeon, and he was resurrected. He died, but thanks to the Terror Mask, or in some versions, the Hell Mask, a Mayan sacrificial artifact from West's house, brought him to life. Also, the mask is sentient. That's important to know.
And then it's like the mask from Crash Bandicoot.
Or the mask from the hit movie The Mask.
Oh, that's the best example of a sentient mask.
And now the mask attaches to Rick, and then you fuse with his body, and it transforms Rick into a monster with superhuman strength, and then you go around and you beat up monsters. and in the dungeons, in the mansions, and there's lots of monsters for you to kill, and you can pick up items like 2x4s and machetes, and it really just feels like you turn into Jason Voorhees, essentially. Now,
Nice.
this game was ported quite a bit, and here's a list of places you can play Splatterhouse now. Break out your TurboGrafx 16, it's on there. Break out your FM Towns, it's on there.
Never heard of it.
PC,
Got one of those.
iOS,
Yep.
Windows Mobile, Android,
I have to dig in a drawer.
and Wii. It's
Yes,
also on
I
the
have
Wii.
all those things
Now-
except FM Towns.
I'm going to get you FM Towns. Don't even worry about it. That way you can play Splatterhouse all the different ways. There was also a remake for this game in 2010, and it was really bad. That's what I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to
There's
say
a couple
about
of horror game remakes in 2010 because there's a sequel to, what was the one with the sequel, Haunted House?
Yeah, that one was also in 2010.
Yeah.
It was the year of horror remakes. Yeah, it just they didn't. It's not a side-scrolling beat 'em up anymore. They tried to make it have like nice graphics and be like a third-person thing, and it didn't work. Sweet Home is the next one on our list. It's for the NES, 1989, an influential title. This is kind of like people think this is the inspiration of Resident Evil. This game, because Sweet Home is a game of a movie tie-in, and it actually, people say the game is better than the movie itself, but a team of documentary filmmakers visits the dilapidated home of artist Ichiro Maimi, only to find themselves trapped in the decaying mansion by an unknown woman. And in like standard horror fashion, the team splits up. You should never split up. It's
Never
a
split
terrible
up.
idea. To search the mansion and find some lost artwork of Mamie, or Mamai, I don't know how to say it, Mamiy, and find a way out of the house, but instead they find a place filled with monsters. Oh no. And it's got randomly generated foes, multiple endings, complex puzzles. If this isn't the dad of Resident Evil, I don't know what is.
Dang, that does sound like the proto Resident Evil.
Yeah, so this is definitely like something to check out. It came out on the Nintendo Famicom, so you know what? I'm sure there's ROMs for it online. You have to buy the game first because it's completely illegal, to buy the game
Right.
and then play the
Yep.
ROM. Everyone should do that. Alone in the Dark, 1992, for
Ooh.
DOS and 3DO. Oh yeah, because the 3DO was a system before it was a company, or vice versa. It was a company, and then they made their own platform called the
Yes.
3DO.
Yeah.
And then 3DO existed for a while, but their platform failed miserably. We talked about it, actually.
It's your boy Trip Hawkins.
That's right, Trip Hawkins. Oh, Trip Hawkins. He's not afraid. Frustrated. So now, Tyler, let's say you're a guy playing games right now. Do you ever get frustrated when you have to manage your inventory system by like weight or encumbrance in the game?
Oh, yeah, like when I'm playing Fallout or Skyrim and it's like,
Yeah.
you can't move, you're over encumbered. Yeah, I hate that.
Well, you can thank Alone in the Dark for that.
Wow.
This is one of the first games with a weight-based pack and groundbreaking 3D graphics. And actually, Alone in the Dark was actually remade. It was in 2001.
Fairly recently, like in the past few years, too, right?
Yeah,
They
there's
got new
actually
ones.
there's other ones too, yeah. But it's pretty much you played as either Edward Carnby or Emily Hartwood, and you were tasked with making your way from a stifling attic of a haunted mansion to explore the floors below. And there were puzzles and scary things in each room, and it was multiple endings. It was scary. Okay, it's really scary.
Sounds really scary.
Yeah, so Alone in the Dark, it's been remade a lot, but I think people still say that you should really check this one out. I don't really have much more to say than that, but it's cool. And you
I just
should
looked
play
up a video of it because he said it had like 3D graphics on DOS in 1992, and they're actually really great for a 1992 DOS game. It was
it.
incredible.
I gotta look it up. I haven't actually looked this one up yet on like YouTube or anything. Talk
It looks
about
almost
something
as good as RuneScape.
Oh,
Like the old
really?
RuneScape, not the old RuneScape, but I mean it looks better than the old.
Oh
RuneScape.
yeah, this actually looks really good for DOS graphics.
Yeah, especially considering the whatever computer you're using right now does not have a 3D card. It's very cool, and the sound sounds pretty good too.
Yeah, you should definitely check
very
this
scary.
game out. It looks very scary and spooky, and I mean, it's definitely it's still worth playing, and it'll play on a toaster, so you have that,
Yeah,
So it was really well received when it came out too. It looks like it was like 8s out of 10s, 4s out of 10, or 4s out of 5s. It did well. So definitely check out Alone in the Dark. If it's got sequels and stuff, maybe we should do like a bigger episode on it. as like
Might
a
be
game
worth
series.
doing. Yeah, and it got remade recently too. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there.
Why? I'll put it on my new list titled "Episode Ideas" that I've been making, and
All right.
and I shared with you. I don't know if I've shown it to you yet, but there you go. Okay, next game, October 15th, 1992. This is the game I added. It's a little game called Night Trap.
Oh,
We've talked
about
Night
this
Trap
one before.
a lot, yes. But if you don't remember or you haven't heard our episodes on it, Night Trap was an interactive movie where vampires are coming into a house and you have to save the pretty ladies that work there. Work there? Live there? I don't know. Is it like a sorority house? I forget.
yeah, I can't exactly remember, but
Yeah,
it was. Good.
I was going to say, it was like one of those games in the beginning that was like, oh my gosh, this game is like going to ruin our kids, you know, because it had like
it was
sexual
like violent
themes.
and yeah.
But really, you were trying to save the ladies. You weren't violent towards the ladies. It was only if you failed that the vampires would kill the ladies. You know, Just to let you know that. But I thought it should be included on this list because it leads into the next one. This is the final game on the list. Phantasmagoria.
Oh boy, I can't wait to hear about this one.
It was for PC and Sega Saturn. And this one is a doozy. It was released in 1995 by the PC game juggernaut Sierra Online. Phantasmagoria was the first rated M game ever made.
Really? Wow.
Yes. It is based on a 550-page script. It took 8 years to make and had a budget of $4.5 million to develop.
That's pretty big for 1995, right?
Well, here's the thing. It wasn't supposed to be $4.5 million. I'll get to that in a second. It was that notoriety that led it to be one of the best-selling games of the era, where players take the role of a mystery novelist named Adrienne Delaney, having just purchased a mansion formerly owned by deceased magician Zoltan Karnovash. I think it's Karnovash. He had 5 wives. Those wives all died horribly. Ooh. Oh, no. And it slowly revealed that Zoltan practiced dark magic and a demon led him to murder his lovers. And the game is super scary and it's got a lot of violence and sexual content. I don't think Tyler and I are allowed to play it. Our parents won't let us, so we can't play it. But I watched footage of this game and it's actually like amazing in a ridiculous way. So the people are live action. They're like people in a movie, but the sets are video game graphics.
Huh.
So everything was filmed in front of a blue screen. And that was one of the big notes about the game is a lot of the actors had never worked in front of a blue screen where it's like, hey, play pretend because you're going to be thrown into a video game level. But it was done using FMV a lot like Night Trap was. And this makes it look like a B horror movie in itself, which I think is kind of cool. And one of like the things that is like really makes the game stand out is it's a horror movie and it really looks it. The game takes about 4 hours to beat. And if you wanted to play it, there's a lot of places to find it. You can. I think it's on Steam. Can you check if it's on Steam for me? I forgot to check that.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
But the script was written by Roberta Williams, who wrote King's Quest, the adventure games. And she didn't want to keep writing. She was worried people thought she was like typecast to write fantasy games. So she even said herself, quote, "I felt I had more to offer than fairy stories. I wanted to explore games with a lot of substance and deep emotions." But let's talk logistics with Phantasmagoria. And also the logistics of making a semi-live action game. So there were 600 scenes filmed for this game. Total filming took about 4 months, 12 hours a day, shooting 6 days a week. 200 people were involved in the making of the game. A total of $800,000 was originally budgeted for Phantasmagoria, and it ended up costing $4.5 million.
Jeez.
You're probably thinking that was a bust. You're like, oh man, they probably didn't make any money. Nope. Phantasmagoria quickly became the best-selling game in the United States, and it was Sierra's best-selling computer game to date. It grossed $12 million and sold 300,000 copies during its first weekend of release. It debuted at number 4 in PC Data's August 1995 list of top-selling computer games for MS-DOS and Windows, behind Microsoft Flight Simulator, Myst, and Command & Conquer. This game, there's so much to talk about with this game. It's so big that I actually think I am putting this on the list to do, because there's so much more detail to it. Like they have like interviews about the game and the stories and how it was made. And I think we could do a big episode on this one. So I kind of wanted to tease it. It's a teaser right now. Okay.
Foreshadowing.
This game is Night Trap on steroids, essentially. Like what would happen if Night Trap was given like a gigantic budget and made like super big. There's a comment in it from Roberta Williams where she's like, I don't think people knew what I wanted the game to be, and they said yes, and then when I told them, they're like, oh no, it's gonna cost way more money. That's kind of how it worked. So there you have it, though. That's the early days of horror games. There's so much more we can touch on. There were a couple of games I deleted off of here because I felt like they were the same type of games and it was a little redundant, and I just took them off, but we can talk about them later. And like I said, again, like Castlevania, Silent Hill, Resident Evil, those all deserve their own series, and I am not going to just throw them on a list like this when they deserve their own series. I feel like we should do them justice in the future. So they're on my list. Tyler, what you been playing?
Well, I've been playing, like usual, been playing a lot of Destiny.
With me,
with
your friend.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of stuff done, playing all the hard stuff, except for we haven't raided yet. But we've been getting a lot done. The season is over now, the season of the Undying. So I got all the things done I wanted to, but that did not include getting like the title that's like the big thing, because there's a lot to grind there.
Yeah.
But other than that, I got Call of Duty Modern Warfare. And podcast producer Toby is just going to hop up in my lap right now.
He's like, just checking the levels. Everything's fine.
Yeah, he's just checking levels, making sure everything's good. Making sure that everybody gets enough love. That's great. Thanks, Toby. But I've been playing Modern Warfare. Play a little bit of the multiplayer of it, but I'm about halfway through the campaign right now. And I always like Call of Duty campaigns, so I got it on sale during Black Friday, and it's been fun. I like the World War II one a lot better than Modern Warfare so far. It's just been harder to follow the storyline. I don't know. It hasn't made me really care yet, but I'm about halfway through, so we'll see if that changes. And then I also got Halo Reach. So we got to play that.
Yeah, I really want to play that too.
Yeah, it's on Game Pass, so I didn't actually have to buy it. And I played like a little bit of the first mission. I'm like, this is pretty cool, but I really want to play again with you, so we need to do that.
I would love that. That'd be so fun. Yeah, I'm going to actually put it on my PC tonight, I think. I haven't been playing a lot of games this week. I touched on the Outer Worlds a little bit more. I actually took some stuff off my Xbox this week because I think I talked about, maybe it was last week, I talked about Battlefield 5 not really living up to my expectations, and I took it off my Xbox. Yeah. Which is a little bit of a bummer. I played some Apex again. I hadn't played Apex in a while, and they changed the meta, and they changed how some guns work, and it's like way different, and I like that. It was really fun.
That's good.
But I'm kind of, oh my goodness. I played Borderlands 3.
Oh, yeah.
How could I forget? I mean, I've only played it for like an hour or so. I've had a lot of stuff going on this week, so I haven't been able to play a lot of games, but I plan on jumping into it more. It's super fun. They've done a lot of fixes to it for me. Like they made it so that when you go buy like ammo or money, you just automatically pick it up. You don't have to hit X, which is a big thing that bothered me with the first games. And it's just more fluid. There's a lot to do. The classes are cool. Super fun. The story is shorter, which I think is better because with Borderlands, you want to like grind it out. You know, you want to replay it and keep going. And I think that's really cool. So I like it. I like it a lot.
That's great.
I don't think the gunplay feels as good as Destiny, but it's never felt as good as Destiny anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's hard to feel as good as Destiny.
Exactly. Now, we did get an email to codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com that I'm going to read. It's our friend Thomas from Ireland. He actually emailed us before. Probably not happy about our UK accents we were doing, is my guess. No. So I apologize first for that, Thomas. But here's his email. Hi, Mike and Tyler. Really enjoyed your recent series on Fallout and Naughty Dog. Fallout 3 is one of my favorite games of all time, so it was cool to hear about the development of that game. Fun side fact, the game was released on October 23rd, which was also supposed to be the date that the nuclear war in the game actually started. That's a great fact.
Oh, that's cool.
I have a question for you guys. I recently picked up a few of the classic consoles that have been released in the last couple of years. So like NES Classic, SNES Classic, Sega Classic. I am really loving playing these old games. But it also makes me wonder how much of the enjoyment of gaming depends on when you first encounter games. For instance, I played my first Mario game in the last few weeks, and although I could enjoy it as a piece of gaming history, I never played these games as a kid and wasn't really pulled into the game all that much. So I'm wondering if the Mario ship has sailed for me and I'm destined to never really love or get Mario games. Have you guys picked up any of the retro consoles released in the last few years? And what are your thoughts on retro gaming? Thomas from Ireland. Well, Thomas, Tyler's got some of those retro consoles, don't you?
I do. I have the NES Classic and I have an SNES Classic as well. So I know what you're talking about.
It is nostalgia driven, 100%.
Oh yeah, a lot of it is definitely nostalgia driven. I think it's almost like watching old movies, right? Like when you watch an old movie from like the 1940s or 50s, and it's like if you want to like it and you want to go in there and find the things that are good about it and like can appreciate it as of like this is how it existed in its time period and like the different things that were around it, you know, because like art doesn't exist in a vacuum. Like it's hard to just look at a piece of art or experience a piece of art and then just make like decisions about it in a vacuum. Like you have to sort of consider what is around it now and what was around it at the time as well. And so if you have the ability to have that appreciation for the time period, there is a lot of really good games there. But that said, sometimes you go back and you watch a movie from the 1940s and it's in black and white, and the way it's shot and the way the characters talk and the way the sound is just like isn't what's good now. And it's very hard to watch some of those things. And so I think video games are kind of the same way of like, if you can appreciate that time period, then you're going to get a lot out of it. If you have a hard time doing it, you shouldn't try to force yourself to either.
Yeah, you should play something you want to play. That's like the biggest thing I'm learning is when I start a game, I don't have to finish it if I'm not enjoying it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like I was like, because for example, The Wolf Among Us, the Telltale game, I really like Fable, but I just haven't been in the mood to play it. You know, and I'm like, I'm not going to force this because I don't want to like hate going into something and doing something. It's not fun at all. So also you have time. You can finish the game later. You know what I mean? You can come back to it later. Mm-hmm. But I love the classic consoles, but I did play a lot of Mario Kart, a lot of Street Fighter, Sonic. Those older games mean a lot to me. And so I can 100% see how it's all based on nostalgia. And I 100% see where you're coming from, Thomas. And thank you for your email, and sorry about the bad accents. Although we didn't do an Irish accent. We just did like, I was trying to go for like a Mary Poppins kind of thing. Anyway, if you want to email us, you can do that at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. You can find Tyler on Twitter at SneakerElf. You can find me on Twitter at MeColetta. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.